I'm Pastor Horace Douty in Lexington, Virginia, and each Thursday I bring you a local history lesson based on one of the books I have written. I've written 2 books of history. This is one of them, History Lessons from a Country Church. And if you're interested in owning these books, they are available downtown Books or in Lexington or the Bookery. But if you like these videos, then I hope that you will click on like Horace Douty YouTube, subscribe, and then the little bell icon so you'll be notified. And share these videos with your friends and your family. I appreciate it. Today, the title of the local history lesson is The Hamilton School. And I memorized when I was a child, still sits the schoolhouse by the road, a ragged beggar sleeping. Around it still the sumac grows, and blackberry vines are creeping. That describes what we call here in Rockbridge the Hamilton School. It has the distinction of being the oldest of its kind yet standing. It was built as the result of a religious revival, brought to Rockbridge by such illustrious pastors as William Graham, George Baxter, and Archibald Alexander. In 1816, inspired by that revival, Rockbridge native Robert Hamilton decided that he would make a lasting contribution to the cause of Christ. He was an industrious and resourceful planter. He viewed hard work as essential to prosperity, but he also knew how to have a good time, which was an unusual trait among Scotch-Irish Presbyterians. Uncle Bob, as he was called, would befriend anybody who was willing to come and hunt and fish with him. His home was known far and wide as a free hunting lodge there on South Buffalo. Some who came never left. Nobody would have called Robert Hamilton a religious man, but with the encouragement of Oxford's pastor, Reverend A.B. Davidson, the Hamilton family built a church. By 1823, it was erected and in use on acreage donated by the Hamiltons. The deed specifically states, "It is a house of public worship. When not occupied for religious worship, the building may be used as a school. It is to be free for all preachers of the gospel, the oldest appointments to hold the preference." The log structure was a beehive of activity. Itinerant preachers, mostly Baptists and Methodists, were delighted with the sturdy facility. From the plain homemade pulpit, they preached messages that were more fiery and appealing than the dignified eloquence of those highly educated Presbyterian pastors. One young Rockbridge County native, William Taylor, began his famous ministry in that log church. Taylor rose in the ranks of the Methodist Church to become Bishop of Africa. He preached on every continent of the world, and historians claim that Reverend Taylor preached more widely than any member of the Christian church in any age. Born on Hogback Mountain in Rockbridge, this remarkable man was part of our Buffalo community before he moved into the position of Bishop to the world, as he was called. Another noted pastor to stand in that modest pulpit was the Reverend Samuel Houston. From his home near Natural Bridge, Reverend Houston would ride his horse across the steep, short hill mountain to perform marriages at the Hamilton Church and to preach at the nearby Oxford Church. That aging pastor was related to Mrs. Robert Sally Hamilton, and through marriage to the Hall family residing on its farm adjacent to the Oxford Church. Now, Carmichael's famous map of 1883 of Rockbridge shows Hamilton's as a church, which it should be, but the building was known more widely as a school. Robert and Sally Hamilton's children were educated there, Their daughter, Narcissa Hamilton, began her teaching career there, but later became one of the foremost women in the field of education in the state of Virginia. John William Johnson, a member of my congregation, can be proud that his own mother, Laura Schaefer, who became Mrs. Granville Johnson, was educated in Hamilton School, and she too returned to the school as teacher and was serving in that capacity when it finally closed in 1928. Students then went to Palmer Academy, 4 miles farther downstream. The old logs of Hamilton School speak of 2 centuries of history. The same sparkling trout stream makes music in the scenic cove. Many old graves there dimple the log, the final resting place of local residents whose identities we do not know because no stones are engraved. But it was here that we know Captain John Wilson and Richard Manspile drilled their militiamen of Company H, 8th Regiment in the early days of the Civil War. Hamilton School became the setting for boisterous political rallies marked by a generous supply of whiskey and by speeches so fiery that tempers flared and blood flowed from broken noses. Uncle Bob loved that kind of amusement. He and his cronies were famous for wearing coonskin caps to the public events, and the little log church was nicknamed Coonskin College. Old photographs show that the solid plank front door was the community bulletin board. After an outbreak of typhoid fever took the life of his son and several of his slaves, Uncle Bob figured it was time to leave. So he sold out and moved to Missouri in 1858, where he spent the remaining years of his life. The Buffalo community mourned his departure, fun-loving citizen. Later they mourned his death. It is Narcissa, his daughter, who set the stone obelisk in Oxford's churchyard to commemorate her family. Her father was buried in Missouri, but this tombstone monument to Uncle Bob stands just a few miles up the stream he loved to fish. Today, we call that place Hamilton School.